Hello, BookTube. Have my friend Sam here for a visit. Thought we'd do a tag together. Got the bean in the background, although the tag is not what they want to hear. If judging from the reactions I've had in the last couple of days, what they really want to hear is both of us opining on that N+1 piece about our own profession.
Why do they want to hear that?
I guess because they don't get out much. Maybe they don't talk to reviewers much. I'm assuming that you've heard about it or read it. You must have followed links.
Yes, I heard about it. I read it.
And did you read Christian Lorenzen's response?
I did.
His response to it. It's had lots and lots of responses, this thing. It's all about the plight of contemporary book reviewing. Far more applies to you than to me.
It's all very Tempest in a Teapot, but maybe those are the most enjoyable sorts of things, that there actually is no stakes related to it at all, so it doesn't matter.
Although one point that Christian made in his response, I really like. I've often advised it, which is the way through this morass is to find some critics that you trust.
Yes, that was the obvious thing.
Exactly.
That was the best point. The entire premises of the N+1 piece was that people wander into book reviews and they're sort of totally befuddled by everything. But that's not true. People subscribe to specific newspapers and periodicals. They become familiar with people writing for them, and then they know, as Christian says, they know which ones they like, or they learn how to read them critically, how to read them, with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, even if you don't agree with them.
Exactly.
One of the main reasons that I read, I think he's one of the most brilliant book reviewers working today. I never agree with anything.
Exactly.
He likes that. I read it for that reason.
I think he has very clear feet of clay in specific things, but once you figure out what those things are, then you can read him incredibly profitably about anything. Yeah.
Being myself, I figured out his feet of clay immediately, as I do with everyone. He's a snob. That's his main weakness, and he admits it. He admits it openly, admitted it to me openly, admits it on social media openly, that he considers readers who don't share his incredibly rarefied literary fiction reading taste as dum-dums. If I can read his stuff and think this is brilliant, knowing that he thinks that because he openly admits it, then I think you can too, right? I think of that all the time. But whether you agree with it or not, if you were a book editor, you'd be crazy to turn down a pitch from him.
But actually, it's a good question to ask people watching. Do they have names apart from your illustrious self?
And you! Although I thought about you in Christian's response, he says that a lot of foremost book review journals have very gentle paywalls. I thought about the Wall Street Journal. Yeah. They'll send somebody to your door if you try to get around. Let me knock on the door, a guy in reflective sunglasses.
If you're ever visiting your grandparents, be sure to check out something like that. No, but who do they have names?
Yeah,
people that you read regularly, and what do you think about those people? Do you trust them unconditionally? Do you read them critically? That sort of thing. I think that's the way people read critics. And
so you're saying that the contemporary reader in the N+1 piece was a total straw man?
I think completely. Yeah.
I tend to agree.
Yeah.
I tend to agree.
I do think that because people confound reviews with Goodreads stuff and Amazon stuff, which is effectively unsigned. It has names, but the names don't mean anything. So you're just kind of reading these free-floating opinions. Maybe there's some confusion in some people's minds about that's just what a review is. It's just sort of an opinion.
See, I wasn't even willing to go that far. That is definitely the assumption in the N+1 piece.
But
there's
I don't
this
think it's
blundering
real.
Neanderthal
who
thinks that a blurb on the back of a book, a Goodreads review, and a 1,000-word review in a paper are all the same kind of thing.
There are people who are that unsophisticated, but I don't think they're. I think they're a minority. If you're reading a book review section, you have some level of you're paying attention to what you're doing. So the whole thing is silly.
Everything about it bothered me. Everything about it. Including all the unspoken stuff, too. The unspoken contempt for the art of reviewing books. It's all through the piece. The bit at the beginning where the writer of the piece says, I thought false advertising was illegal. So what are you saying, then? That accurate advertising is legal and that's what reviewing is? You think reviewing is advertising?
Well, the
whole thing irritating.
N+1 has... This piece is at the very beginning of the issue, and it's an unsigned piece called The Intellectual Situation. It's at the start of every issue. They have another... It's basically their sort of editorial piece, and it's written by the editors in an unsigned way, as you would find in a newspaper where they have little editors' things. But the problem is that if you write in an unsigned way, you have to you have to use the kind of the general we, and it's totally antithetical to what N+1 is and what it's capable of doing. N+1 works when it works best. It works as kind of a contrarian intellectual journal where it's sort of supposed to go against the main currents of thought. And that way it can be interesting. But that has to be iconoclastic and it has to be individual.
Right.
So when N+1 attempts to use this sort of general we,
the editorial we,
it's completely incapable of doing it because it's not able to do it like you would find in like The Believer, which is we are all in it together, so we can use the we in a sincere way. They use it in a completely insincere way, and they don't know how to do it. So there's never been a good intellectual situation article ever in the entire history of this magazine that often does good things. And it's because of this fundamental clash between the purpose of that piece and what the magazine is. And to me, the fact that they've never figured that out is one of the oddest
It's odd that
things.
they keep doing it.
Yeah, they always do it, and it's never good because they don't know whether they're supposed to use the we ironically or not ironically. They're not sure whether they're supposed to be contemptuous about the general we, or they're supposed to try to create some sort of bond and coalition that people can unite behind. They don't know how to use it,
No.
and they've never successfully used it ever.
No, surely one of the yardsticks of whether or not you succeed at that is making your reader think they're part of that general we.
Right.
And no one reading this thing could have thought you're speaking for me.
Right. No.
But we do. Well, there you go. So you got us talking about the N+1 piece. He's right. It's a tempest in a teapot. The only way that you could take it seriously is if you think that the general reader, the kind of general reader that's invoked in the piece, is real. And I'm willing to go as far as you went. A very small minority of the reading public. Most readers are much more sophisticated than that. And if you're going to make a whole piece about that, then but we do have bookish stuff to talk about. We'll do a book tag.
Ooh.
And also books. Yeah, books.
Oh, yes.
I'm chalking this up to you. I'm blaming your influence. Because all you do is write about fiction. The made-up stories. And we met at the wine shop this afternoon. And this particular wine shop has books for sale for $1 a piece. And I got some. Can you read some easier than I can? They're all the made-up stories. Now, the first one, I think we agree on the greatness of this author?
Yes.
Have you read this translation?
No, I haven't. I've read the Woods, John K. Woods.
The most famous one. This is...
Oh. It's got notes.
Little notes.
An eager undergrad.
Yes, some eager undergrad. Oh, no. I didn't check it for highlighting. Oh, and it's all in pen. What kind of a Philistine highlights a book in pen?
Greek for love, eros.
Oh, God help us. Agape. All right, well.
Disinterested love.
Yes.
Why don't we bring this back to the one?
Yeah, I'll drop it off. He can sell it for some other mark. I didn't look inside it because I was distracted. That's all. So I got this, but I'm obviously not going to keep it because it's covered in undergrad. Look at this. Ridiculous. Broke my own rule number 1. And then I got these two things. I don't want any of you. There are going to be some of you out there who are going to look at this and squeal. You're going to think you've won the day. Don't get over-encouraged, okay? I was under the sway of one of the foremost fiction critics in the country. I got these two little modern libraries of William Faulkner.
Have you heard of him? He's a Southern writer.
Yes, he's a Southern writer. As I Lay Dying and The Sound and the Fury, two of his more critically acclaimed pieces of crap. They're called the corrected text. And my first thought when I saw that in the wine shop is, so it's just going to be all black redaction? There won't be anything in there, but the text is in here. It's not corrected to perfection. But I asked you, and we're not sure what corrected text means. You Faulknerites will know what corrected text means. What does that mean, that these are the corrected text?
I don't know. Maybe when it was first published, they did stuff that he didn't care for, and he got notes in there also.
Oh, no. These are noted as well.
But, of course, this is Faulkner, so the notes only go up to page 28. And then they abruptly stop.
Yep, because that's when either the class ended or the girl in the next row said yes. And so you're done. You don't need anything else. I kind of like these little volumes. I have Shelby Foote in these volumes. I don't like Faulkner, but they were $1 a piece, so I grabbed it. They love Faulkner. They think he's the bee's knees. There's a booktube event right now going on called Faulkner in August, where a whole bunch of otherwise normal and sensible people are wasting time on this. We certainly don't want me to stem line. So instead, yet, you're doomed to stem line. In a few hours, it's all going to be stem line here. But for now, we have a tag. I think you did a tag the last time you were here, right? I don't remember if you did or not.
I think so. I think I find them difficult.
This one I think you'll find easy. It's called the Fictional Favorites book tag. Although maybe not. It's been my experience that universally, when you ask someone, what's the last good book you read?
Yeah,
the more they read, the more they will blank.
I can't answer the question. No, honestly.
I know, people don't. The people who read one book a year, they immediately can answer that.
Right.
But you ask a book critic that.
So the key here is just going to be pick an answer and just go with it, whether or not it's the
right. Or
right
the key
answer.
here
Just,
to lower the pressure will be to pick a few answers
Okay.
instead of one definitive. I have one definitive answer, but you don't have to.
well,
Like-
I'm going to pick a definitive answer, but I'm going to preface all of it by saying I'm just picking it and I'm going with it.
Right. Just
Rather than I'm not going to hedge around everything. So just take it as a caveat that maybe it's not actually the answer.
so this originated. I saw it on. It was made by Final Blow Joe. I don't know if Final Blow Joe makes videos anymore. And I saw it on The Archive, which is Graham Quigley's channel, I think. But I'll leave links, all of the requisite links. So the first prompt is favorite genre. Well, that's fairly easy. Right?
Yeah.
Now, would you
Yeah.
say fiction, or would you
I guess you would
balkanize
say
that even
would
further?
say literary fiction, I guess, as a genre.
Okay.
I guess.
And it has to be fiction. So it can't include, my answers can't be any of my favorite genres of a fiction. I would say historical fiction.
Oh, it has to be fiction, yeah.
Yeah, this is a fictional favorites book tag.
Yeah.
But you're in the clear anyway, because you're not going to pick anything else.
I suppose.
Then number 2 is favorite author.
Yeah.
Again, this is the kind of thing that's impossible.
Right. It's impossible.
But what if we were to say, like, for instance, 20th century author?
Okay.
Or, no, even better, so that we get, dinosaurs like Tolstoy out of the picture. Let's say
Right.
post-1950, second half of the 20th century. The authors you grew up with.
Right.
Of those, let's say starting with Fitzgerald and Hemingway, who would they be?
Around that time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Well, it doesn't have to be one favorite. It can be all kinds of favorites.
Right. Right. So one favorite, because I've been thinking, I was reading short stories and I was thinking about my favorite short story writers, and I think it is Eudora Welty. I think she is. I'm not even sure she's the best, although she's clearly one of the best. But she's sort of my beau ideal of an artist somehow. Someone who wrote perfectly, wrote beautifully, but had no pretensions about it, but also had complete confidence in her ability.
Yeah,
Who
no
worked when
pretensions. You
worked-
really get the feeling that she's writing without caring whether or not anybody reads it.
Yeah.
Which you never get. In the 21st century, that's totally gone.
Yes, but if someone sort of questioned her about her craft, she knew exactly what she was doing. There was
Yes.
no sort of
Yeah, there was
defensiveness
right.
or
There was no,
vulnerability.
you've heard of little old me. There was
Yeah.
nothing like anything like that.
Yeah,
It's-
and there was no sort of, but I actually did travel more than people think. I mean, she did, but she didn't have to explain or defend herself or anything. Yeah. So she's a favorite for sure. She's the only writer I've made a pilgrimage to see that person's house.
no kidding.
The only one.
What was
that
it like?
Well, it's a museum. Her gardens were very famous, and so they've kept up her gardens as you can go actually take a guided tour and see them, and see.
Did they
the
offer you
room.
grits and bourbon?
No, sadly not. I think she was sort of always making casseroles and stuff.
Oh
when
no,
people
the
came
bee
over.
is being extra cute. She's Frida bombing our video.
She too likes Eudora Welty.
Oh
famously
baby,
did.
what are you doing? All right, well, they're officially not listening to anything we say now. Baby, what are you doing? Oh no, she's decided to be extra cute. Sometimes she just lays down, and so the video is mine, but not now. Oh God. All right, well, but for me, my answer to this question in roughly that same time period,
Mhm.
I think would be Narayan, another favorite of yours.
Oh wow, that's a good
In
one.
terms of somebody who wrote a lot and never wrote anything I didn't love. Like P.G. Wodehouse wrote a lot, but he wrote a lot I don't love.
Yeah.
But Narayan, there's nothing I've ever read that I didn't love.
How interesting. I've read not nearly enough of him, but everything I have read I've liked.
All right, well, we'll move on here to prompt number 3, your favorite book. This is exactly the sort of thing that makes book critics just freeze.
Yeah.
What if we were to say,
the
second half of the 20th century?
Right. Right.
So not the 21st century. So
Right.
we're ruling out The Last Samurai.
Right.
We're ruling out anything like that.
Okay, so the one I always go to and always bring up is Vasily Grossman's Life and Fate, which I think you've talked about a lot. But that is like the War and Peace of the 20th century. So it's in some ways more, well, relevant is not the right word, but maybe it's more immediate because the experiences for the reader now might be a little bit more fresh and might be, it's not like War and Peace is not relevant. It's still the greatest book ever. But Life and Fate is War and Peace, the same ambition, the same cast of characters, the same humanity, the same interest in morality, interest in individual actions, interest in group actions, interest in war, interest in peacetime, interest in thinking, interest in art throughout all of that, interest in love.
The one thing that I would add is Heretical, which is also equal capability.
Yeah.
I think they're equally good.
I'm not going to disagree.
One has not been in the canon as long as the other.
Right.
This might be, Frida, leave it be, baby, leave it be. This might be a case where we have the same answer. The only caveat in terms of simply enjoying a book over and over again would be a question of timing, because I'm not 100% sure when it first came out, but I'm thinking of the Makioka sisters.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I don't know the date of that. Do you know? I'm ashamed to say I don't know the date of that.
I think it's...
Is that in our time period?
Yes, it's mid-century. I think it's right...
Tanazaki's Makioka sisters, I might put that ahead of even Life and Fate. I might do that. It'd be really hard to do. You're not just picking one book.
I think it's late 40s or early 50s. I'm not sure. But yes, that's also... Oh, yeah.
What are you doing, baby? Huh? What are you doing? You're stealing the show, Frida. Why don't you just... Oh, baby, why don't you just sit down? Oh, do you want to get down on the floor? Is that it? Well, there's no way you're going to do that, baby. Just have to sit and wait. That's all. We have a few more prompts, and then we'll give you our undivided attention. Right, so we'll pick a few books there. And, that favorite book, that list could be very long.
Yeah.
Think of...
you could pick a bunch of things.
Oh, she does want to get down.
There you go.
Here, let's see if she can make her way. There you go. All right. Eyes on the prize. Because you think about all the other things that we're leaving out, right?
Yeah.
What about Larry and Mercury? Right?
Larry and Mercury, yeah.
Or
yeah. Yeah.
a whole bunch of other things. But
John Dos Passos, USA. Yeah, all sorts of things.
Salem's Lot.
As I Lay Dying.
So we'll move on. Favorite book, it's just a scattershot thing. Although we're awful close to agreeing on the same book out of all the books we've read in that time period.
Well, I agree with Makioka sisters. I think that's
It'd be tough to make a call between that and Life and Fate.
Yeah.
You'd have to sort of say it isn't just one book.
Yeah, your man Thomas Mann.
Next one isn't even literary, I don't think, unless it means the question is meant to appeal to a book. Prompt number 4 is favorite land or environment. Which could just be a personal question. It could just be...
All right.
It could just be not in a book, unless it means in a book. I don't know what I would pick.
Well, I lived in Southwest USA for a few years, and the land and environment and landscape and natural world and ecosystem and ecology is so singular that it's just impressed on my mind more than any other place, even places I've lived for a much, much longer time. It made me aware of the natural world in a way that I wasn't when I lived on the East, where the natural world was so much more profuse or interrupted. It was, so I suppose that's it. I've sort of romanticized it in my mind.
Oh, wow. Well, I could say the same thing about the American Midwest, for me. I mean, it's and even more specifically, just the American Midwest that draws its life from the Mississippi.
Mm.
So not even going into the upper Midwest, just the Midwest itself, Iowa, Illinois, that sort of thing. The the place that did what you described, that showed me that the natural world was actually real, didn't have a landscape. It was the ocean that did that. Because what you mean by that is a place that could indifferently kill you.
Yeah, kind of.
That's what people tend to mean when they say it really brought the natural world alive for me. Is that suddenly you aren't in control anymore, not complete control.
Yeah.
You look at the painted desert, you know immediately. You know, when you're in the American Southwest, there are long, long stretches. You and I have never been there together.
No.
But there are long, long stretches in the American Southwest and in Texas where you'll be just going along, you'll be just driving along, and the idea will suddenly strike you: if anything goes wrong with this vehicle, I'll die before anyone can save me. I am on an alien planet. I won't live if anything goes wrong. You can't walk out. I've had things go wrong with vehicles in the Pacific Northwest, and once you're absolutely sure that the vehicle is beyond hope, the next thought is, well, you'll just walk out. You just have to do that. You have to walk out. It's 300 miles in that direction. You know exactly what you're doing.
Right.
If the bears are kind, you'll make it. In the American Southwest, no, absolutely not. There's no walking out. You'll die.
And even life that has adapted to live in it for millions of years, even for that, it's extremely precarious, and it doesn't really work all that well. Remember, there's a bird called a cactus wren, which flies through the cactus, the saguaro cactus, and the other kind of cactus to get the fruit, and it's adapted to do that, and it doesn't have a lot of competition doing that. I remember it was bouncing around in like a prickly pear or something. How does it do that without getting speared? It must be some amazing adaptive process. And then I was walking once, and I just saw a bird that had been speared by a cactus. It doesn't have some magic secret. It just tries not to die every single time it gets food.
Well, we both sort of stuck to America. It's kind of odd. Have you spent any great amount of time in the American Midwest? Have you ever been to Iowa?
Yes. I've spent a decent amount. I've never lived there. I've never lived anywhere in the American Midwest, but I've traveled through it extensively.
But in the American Southwest, for you, it was Arizona.
Yeah,
right?
Tucson.
Arizona is an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Okay, prompt number 5 is... once again, I want to just parenthetically mention to you that BookTube had its beginnings in YA and specifically Harry Potter.
Okay,
just so you know. Wow. The BookTube has not shaken off all of that DNA, and this tag is very old.
Okay.
But prompt number 5 is favorite spell. And for purposes of the question, we could just say, what is the number one supernatural ability that you would like to have?
Oh.
If you could have one supernatural ability, what would it be?
Right.
You know, typically people will say flying. I don't know why people say flying.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to change the whole world. If it's just you who can fly, you don't want that as a superpower because your life would be ruined. Absolutely ruined. People will often mention invisibility.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Favorite spell. Good Lord.
What is a favorite supernatural thing that you would like to be able to do?
Well, I think stopping time would be the most. I say that for purely sort of practical. I got like too much stuff to do. I just stop time for like an extra hour every day. Everyone had to shut up and couldn't move and had to leave me alone, and then I could do what I needed to do. Amazingly,
that's my answer as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a scenario that I've worked out in my mind to a fare thee well. I call it, the purposes of this tag, I would call it the shelter spell. And that is where I go to a normal doorway that I know about, like the door to that little book room.
Mm-hmm.
But the spell is that when I open the door, I am in a cozy little room. Has a wash basin, has a working faucet, has a cupboard with some food in it, has a chair, has a vast circle of books. And it is not part of space-time.
Right.
I close that door, and I can just spend an endless amount of time in there and then come back into this normal world of entropy, of space-time. Basically, it's the same thing. I'm asking for a timeout pocket.
Is there not a science fiction novel in which that's the premise, in which someone...
There was a short... Well, there are probably quite a few of them. There was a short story in, I think, Analog a couple of years ago that had a bit of that as a kind of premise. Huh. But in Frank Herbert's Dune books, there's a concept of a no room that is outside of the normal time space in such that anything that happens in that no room can't be seen by all of the future predictors, the prescience of that the spice gives to some people.
Right.
But time still passes in a no room. You can still grow up in a no room. The room that I'm talking about, the shelter I'm talking about, is just lovely, and you can go there,
Right.
and nothing changes except your mind. Your mind you get to take in new books. So we had the same answer to that. So we'll go on to prompt number 6. Oh, prompt number 6 is a bit of a trick question, considering how this video started. Prompt number 6 is, your favorite beast or creature? I don't think you're in a position to give any answer except one. But we'll see. Maybe you have a favorite who isn't looking at you. Maybe they mean a fictional creature.
Well,
Frida's only quasi-fictional. Maybe they mean a fictional creature. I am not under any liberty to answer this in any but one way.
Of course it would be Frida.
If you were to say fiction,
right?
You don't deal much in creatures, right?
No.
Contemporary literary fiction doesn't really deal much in creatures.
No, but I still should have an answer. Yeah. No, there's not a lot of creatures in it.
And you've been doing contemporary literary fiction for a long time now, so it's not like you have a vast well of reading before that to draw on that was drastically different.
No, but I was young. I read fantasy novels like everyone, and I read the Prydain Chronicles, the Terran.
Lloyd Alexander,
the Book of Three, and the
those stand
the
up
Black
to
Cauldron. And
they do.
The last
those things really ought to have a Library of America.
That's right. And in the first volume, I think it's the first volume, the Book of Three. There's a dragon, some sort of dragon creature that is generally supposed to be evil, is under the thrall of the bad guy. And in the very first volume, one of these dragon flying creatures is wounded, and Terran helps it, mends it in some way, and it flies away. You forget about it, and then in the 5th volume, just as he's facing off against all the bad creatures, and he's entrapped and he's about to get killed, that dragon appears and saves him because it remembers that he had saved the dragon. And that's the first time something like that ever happened in my reading life, where I realized that you could plant a clue or a seed, and then the plot would turn where it would reoccur in some way. So it was totally revelatory to me when I found, because I remembered that happening, and I realized, the author has schemed this.
A long-term plan.
It hadn't occurred to me at that stage of my reading life that an author would do that. Somehow, I mean, obviously it's obvious, but that it was a realization to me that the author is planning out the story and is creating dramatic twists and is planting seeds that will then come to fruition later. So that's my favorite fictional beast.
Well, I have a favorite fictional beast as well. If we're not talking Frida has to get it in the real world for now because she's been adorable all day. And the beast I have in mind existed for real, but still fictional, and that would be a certain 50-foot phosphorescent prehistoric killer shark named Meg. In the Meg novels, megalodons did actually exist. For those of you who may be on the fringes of reality, they don't currently exist. Okay? I want to stress this when we're talking about cryptozoology of any kind, but especially if we're talking about a 50-foot-long, 100-ton apex predator.
You haven't been to the Gowanus Canal lately.
I know. Well, if it's going to be anywhere, it would be the Gowanus Canal. But I want to stress when we're talking about these things, we're not talking about Loch Ness. We're talking about, I want you to remember 2 words, breeding population. You need a breeding population in order to have these things around. There's no possibility that a breeding population of anything large exists in the world that hasn't been seen by the million drones that are over our heads every day. But the Meg in the book, like killer sharks in every killer shark piece of fiction, is, Mensa level intelligent and can deeply plan and understands everything. So I'm going to use that as my favorite beast. Then question number 7, favorite food.
Again, extra literary or just food in
I don't think there'll
general?
be much to pick from if we don't go extra literary.
Yeah.
Here on this particular case.
Uh,
I mean, how many literary foods can you think of that make any kind of an impression?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
There are some
Meals, maybe. But
meals. Yeah, there are some hot dogs that are rather operatically described in some Philip Roth novels. I'm sure you remember some of those passages as well as I do. I'm not sure that counts.
what I like, I'm going to relate it to books by relating a time period in my life when every single night I would go to a diner in order to read or write. There's an all-night diner called the Metro Diner up in the Upper West Side, and I would order the same thing. I would get a grilled cheese on rye with mozzarella cheese. I know it sounds bizarre. And I would order a side of tater tots. And that's what I got virtually at a certain period of my bachelor existence when I was doing a lot of reading and writing. That's what I did. Not every night, but I did that at least 3 times a week.
And it
would go
totally
at midnight.
fond memories. Right?
Yeah,
because you got a lot done.
Yeah, I did get a lot done. Yeah. I would sleep till extremely late the next day, but yes.
Okay, well then if that reminds me, I got shrimp fried rice at a hole-in-the-wall Chinese food place in Chinatown here in Boston for decades. I never ordered anything else. I knew the family. I knew multiple generations of the family, and I went there to read periodicals. That's the only thing that I did. I never went there to talk. I never went there to read books. I went there to read and annotate periodicals for decades until the girls got sick. Suddenly, I couldn't justify when they were sleeping all day long. I could justify it, but when they would miss me and felt bad, then I couldn't justify going anymore. And then the pandemic hit, so that habit has been totally sundered. It doesn't happen anymore. But I guess you could say that. If we're not going to talk about Mega Stuff Oreos, then I guess we can say that. Then number 8 is favorite beverage.
Right.
Again, is there anything literary? I mentioned Dune, so I'm thinking of spice wine, but I can't think of anything. It just doesn't do it enough for me. I mean, I probably haven't read as many fictional scenes of beer and wine drinking as you have, but I've read a lot of them.
Yeah, right. What are they drinking in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Gin and tonics, I guess. I don't know. In real
life, I only drink 3 things: orange juice, water, and red wine. So it's very boring. There's no mix this exactly right, do that exactly right. I think of University of Chicago, Levi Stahl probably has in his head 100 different arcane drink recipes, and they're probably all really good.
Yeah,
but I'm not.
I don't do much of cocktails. I like an evening cup of tea. I like peppermint tea of an evening.
I wasn't going to mention how old he is. I was just going to let you figure it out for yourself.
So that's my favorite drink.
It's pure rock and roll here.
It relates. Exactly.
But do your children allow you to do that?
This is when they've gone to bed. So after they go to bed,
at nighttime.
Tea. Okay. Cup of decaffeinated peppermint tea. There you go.
There'll be no tea on the menu tonight. Instead, we got some wine. A normal amount of wine for me, and then you'll have a quarter of 1 cup. You'll still manage to be hungover tomorrow. No idea why. I'll come out into the broad light of the living room in the morning. Tra-la-la. Wow, wasn't that a fun visit? And he'll be like, ooh.
That guy was hungover last time.
I don't know about the chosen people on wine. I really don't.
Maybe not wine.
I mean, doesn't your God ask a lot of you anyway? Without adding that extra burden? Well, he doesn't even like the Irish. We can go for days.
He doesn't mind if you guys waste your lives. You're drunk and stupid.
It's true. It's true.
We have responsibilities.
Let's see here. Oh, number 9. Favorite good character.
Oh,
and I'm sure this means not in terms of good in terms of well drawn, but good in terms of
good, morally virtuous.
Virtuous.
That's a very interesting question. I don't know a favorite, but I can think of 2. One is I don't know why these are coming to mind. They're just the first.
No, but that's the fun of this.
They're just the first two that came to mind.
You do this tag 6 months from now, the answers would be different.
Yeah, yeah. A Jumpalihiri novel called The Lowland, which is two novels ago.
What a book! I think you and I like that better than any other critics do.
I liked it more than her. I like her most recent novel also, but it's very different. This was more of a kind of one of those naturalistic historical novels, sort of sweeping generational saga things that she no longer writes. But it had a character who's an immigrant from India, comes to Rhode Island, and has to take care of the wife of his deceased brother and their child, and basically has to kind of become the husband and the father. And he's not very loved for it, and he's not treated especially well. Over time, he's appreciated, but he just has to do it as a matter of sort of responsibility and dignity and loyalty and faithfulness to his brother, to the memory of his brother, and honor. And he's a very quiet and soft-spoken character, but he sort of glows with goodness that is not forced at all, and it's not emphasized.
The description makes it sound like he's an arid character, but she somehow manages to make him interesting.
No, exactly. Yeah, he's very. You don't even realize that he's good until sort of deep into the book, and then you realize, he's the person holding everything together. He's almost indistinct at first, and then you realize that his soft-spoken quality and just his
right. Yes, he's almost indistinct at first until you realize how many of the wheels have him as the hub.
Yeah,
and you realize it about the same time as some of the characters do.
Yeah,
which is kind of artful.
Yeah,
I would pick the main character in Moving On by Larry McMurtry.
Oh,
or the mother in Housekeeping.
Yeah,
by Marilyn Robinson, another character who is flawed but essentially very, very good. But I think my number one choice would be, I'm never going to remember her name, but the main character in An Unnecessary Woman.
Oh, yeah.
She's totally nondescript. And she has a hobby. As a hobby, she translates one book every year out of English into, what is it, Arabic?
Into Arabic, yeah. She
doesn't do anything with them. She doesn't show them to anybody. She just keeps them. But she's otherwise completely low profile. And yet, she doesn't do anything. I don't know why I'm thinking of her as good, but she was the first person that came to mind.
That's very interesting. Well, she's an incredible character, and people should read that book. Yeah. Rabi Al-Madin.
Is that how you say his last name?
I
didn't want to butcher it.
I don't know.
We follow her on buses. We follow her thinking about books and literary prizes and day-to-day stuff and taxis and is it going to rain? And we follow her doing these translation projects. And the most that happens in the book at the climax is that we hear that a water main broke in her apartment. Yeah. And thanks to the skill of the book, your heart's in your throat.
Yeah. Is it going to destroy
her translations?
Yeah.
Then, of course, the next prompt is favorite bad or evil character.
Right. Okay.
In fiction.
Yeah, right.
In fiction. So let's not talk about your host. Let's talk about fiction.
Right. Yes. Who's a bad character in fiction? Ooh, you go first, and I'll try to think of something.
Well, the most outrageous example for me would be Leto II in God Emperor of Doom. He's not human anymore. He's thousands of years old, and he is endlessly self-justifying in the course of the novel that he's not evil, or that what he does is necessary, and that's just sophistry. If you do something, but there's another character in an author that I love that the literary world has largely forgotten, I think, and that's Pete Dexter, Paris Trout.
Yeah,
his book Paris Trout, and the character of Paris Trout is one of the main characters in the book and is thoroughly evil. Just thoroughly evil. I don't know what's happened to Pete Dexter. What's happened to him? Is he still alive?
He is still alive.
Anymore.
Well, he's very old and possibly unwell.
Oh.
Possibly has been unwell. I think I read something that said was working on something very long, but I think that might not be. I think he might not be in a state to do so. But he is alive, but he's in his upper 80s or something. So
well, Pete Dexter in Paris Trout, Paris Trout is such a horrible, horrible character. And with no attempt made on the part of the narrative to reclaim him. or explain him or justify him in any way. So that at one point in the novel, when one of the characters says to one of the other characters, "There's a little of Paris Trout in all of us," you just recoil as a reader. You just don't want that to be true. But so there you go. I've got science fiction and contemporary fiction.
Yeah, that's very good. Boy, I'm failing on all this. I think of... It's terrible.
I bet you're thinking of canonical fiction instead.
Kind of. I think of Shakespeare.
Yeah,
something.
Shakespeare.
That's what immediately comes to mind when all the best characters are bad, for the most part.
You can pass.
Yeah.
Nothing's coming to mind.
Maybe I'll pass unless it's,
Let's see here. Prompt number 11 is favorite male protagonist.
Okay.
Rather tellingly, this is not the same thing as asking favorite good character, I guess. It could be either way.
Right.
But in this case, it can be just a major character, I would think. It doesn't have to be.
Right.
And, of course, it doesn't have to be the number one favorite.
Right.
Like Joseph Anton by Salman Rushdie.
Huh,
is that fiction? Is that considered fiction? No, that's a memoir.
I think that's a memoir, but I don't know. Well, I mean, a favorite that is everybody's favorite is something that you mentioned. Is Larry Murtry's Lonesome Dove is Augustus McCrae. He must be the most singularly beloved character
in modern fiction.
In modern
fiction. That might be right. I've certainly never had anybody read that book that didn't come away thinking that.
Right. And how and why that is well, just because he's so charming and entertaining, but also he's brave and he has honor.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And I think that those things wouldn't work so well. I don't think he'd have the effect he has on readers if not for Captain Call.
Right.
I don't think it would work. Either one of them, I don't think, work alone.
Yes, I think you're right.
With Captain Call, you see this badass, totally capable guy who isn't outgoing, isn't personable, they've both had enormous adventures. But
right.
I think that the counter effect there. In fact, I would probably say I would list both of them.
Right.
As sort of,
which is, I suppose, the key to the novel, that it's fundamentally a friendship novel, even though it's a million other things.
Yeah.
But that's the...
Yeah, and the narrative sort of pushes Captain Call forward as this formidable, stern, solemn figure, but we learn right away in the course of Lonesome Dove that when the chips are down, Augustus McCrae is just as capable.
Yeah.
He just doesn't show. That's not the only part of him. I remember reading that for the first time, and again had a lump in my throat in the scene when he meets July Johnson out in the middle of nowhere, and realizes that Laurie is in the outlaw camp just over the ridge.
Right. And
July Johnson is saying, "Well, I should go with you. You know, I should." He says, "No, protect your people. I'll do it." And I was thinking what July Johnson was thinking, which is there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make a difference at all. It's the quality of the man in the fight that matters. He kills them all, and that's what July Johnson says. You killed them all, like he's expecting some sort of other outcome. You killed them all, and fails. July Johnson doesn't protect. Yeah. He doesn't protect. His people die, and he'd have died with them if he hadn't gone to sightsee. So we can agree on that.
Sure.
Colin McRae. And then, of course, we'll finish up with favorite female protagonist.
Right. Famous female protagonist.
And we've already named a few of them. I don't know that I would have a favorite female character who wouldn't be a good person. Or would I?
I don't know.
You have to go to Shirley Jackson for something that her favorite female character is not particularly good, not particularly likable.
Yeah, that's true. We've always lived in the castle. It's a pretty good one. Well, let's see.
Something more recent, maybe?
Sure, something more recent. Well, everyone knows all the male characters from Marilyn Robinson's Gilead novels, but in the second one, Home, it's narrated by the daughter of Ames's best friend, Mary Boughton, I think is her name. I can't remember her first name, but she narrates it, and nothing's really come of her life. She's moved back home to take care of her father. She had a failed marriage, and it wasn't even a marriage, I don't think, and she didn't have any children. So in everyone's eyes, she's kind of this pity case, and she's aware of that, and yet at the same time, of course, she's infinitely complex, and she's caring for people, but doing so in a way that that still sort of redeems herself in the doing. It's extremely subtle and very moving portrait of her, and yet she's sort of funny and self-deprecating at the same time. So it's not.
Yeah, you're not supposed to pity her.
No, you're not supposed to pity her, and it's not meant to redeem her exactly. It's just meant to involve her and implicate her in the bigger things that are going on in the story.
What I wouldn't give. 92nd Street Live, 1 hour, paying audience, you talking with Marilyn Robinson.
Oh,
what
yeah.
I wouldn't give. Oh my. Not me.
I
the audience might pay for that.
I wouldn't give her a chance to talk. I'd be like, I think what you want to.
I don't think you would mansplain to Marilyn Robinson. I don't think there's anybody out there who would have the cojones to mansplain.
Yeah.
To what I think we could uncontroversially call the greatest American novelist.
To my mind, yes.
To my mind, I mean, we don't agree on almost anything in fiction. She's the things that she's trying to do, even when she isn't completely successful, put to shame.
Yeah.
Almost everything else that. I'm gonna name two things. One is from a book that you know that I like, but it came and went. Girl Mary, a book about the Virgin Mary.
Yeah,
I loved when it came out. I would push it on everybody. And the portrait of the Virgin Mary in Girl Mary, the novel, I don't remember the author's name. It's a vaguely Czech-sounding name, I think. But the portrait of the Virgin Mary in that book is just wonderful. I loved it. I read tons and tons of biblical fiction, and she's easy to get wrong. So I loved it. But another one I'm going to name is more in your wheelhouse. See What I Have Done?
Sure.
The debut novel about Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden, yeah.
Which is told in multiple viewpoints, but the Lizzie Borden parts, God, I felt so smothered. I felt like I was trapped in the mind of someone who wasn't sane and didn't know it.
Right.
And I can't remember off the top of my head if you liked that book.
I didn't read it.
Oh, you didn't do it? You
No.
didn't cover that?
No, I
See
didn't
What
read
I've
it.
Done.
But I remember you loving it.
I was going to ask you if you'd read it, if you know if the author's written anything else.
I think not, because I think I would remember the name. But
This horrible, creeping performism that exists in contemporary fiction, where you have a great debut and then the whole world is expected of you.
Yeah.
No wonder so many people don't write again.
Yeah.
It's just a terrible shame. I would hate not to hear from some of these authors again. Whereas some of the others, this Andrew Martin character, I can't shut him up. One book after another. Someday, he'll be right here. He can take the shots on his own. So there you go. That is the fictional favorites book tag. You did another BookTube tag. You're a BookTube veteran.
Man, I gotta go lie down. I started out strong. I feel like I kind of steam.
They're not going to think that.
Okay, good.
No, they're going to like you more than me. Although you're going to get a little taste of my medicine, because the number one sentiment is going to be, why did Frida leave so early? It doesn't matter how many pearls of wisdom.
Because she looked at how long this video is.
Oh my God. I didn't look at this is long. All right, well, we'll wrap this up. We're going to have a nice long evening of book talk. Long as you can go. So 10:15, 1/4 of a cup of wine.
After the nap I'm going to take right now.
But I'm going to wrap. I had no idea this has gone so long. Sorry about that. We get talking about books. We go on and on. I'm going to wrap this up, and I will see you soon. So, bye, BookTube.